Tonight we're going to talk about the Hagal rune, and I wrote initially about the pelting aspect of it, because what Hagal is, it literally means hail, and many of us haven't had the experience, I have, of that just pelting with something hard coming down on you, and it makes you run for cover. It hurts, the stuff stings. But I remember an incident from 50 years ago. We were up the country, and my brother and I were playing in the yard, and the storm just happened. The edge of the storm was our yard. So on one side was nothing, and on the other this hail was coming down, and we're running back and forth. It wasn't too hard a storm. The little pellets fascinated us, but we put them in our pockets and got another surprise. And it was that pelting that I remember about it, and that is the action of hail. Hail is a sudden boom. The general direction is downward, and it pelts and pellets, and it can pellet in an instant or over a period of time. It generally tends to, when it hits, makes everything move away from it. I've heard it likened to the blasted tower of the tarot card. Both do have something in common. They're a quick, sudden, instant event that makes immediate change, and they can be devastating, or they can actually be liberating. The blasted tower can also be freeing someone from restriction. Hagal can do that too. But think of this as pelleting and pelting, and a randomness to it. Now, if you've ever fired a rifle you have to aim. You have one ball with a circumference like this trying to hit a target, and you have to aim carefully. It takes a little more time, even though, like when I was in the Army, they taught us quick fire, and you would pick it up and fire quick. You still had to aim. You still had to be on the target pretty precisely. Whereas a shotgun, you could point at the target, a little less aim, because you knew that when the shot come out, what the shotgun fires is scatter shot. A handful of small pellets, not a handful maybe, but an amount of small pellets that scatter. So with a rifle, you got this much round coming at you, like ting, and with a shotgun, you got, whoa, so you've got maybe a foot of a shotgun pattern coming at you, a little less room for deviation. But yet at distant range, it dissipates too far and loses strength where the bullet carries on. And that's something to appreciate, to understand Hagal, how at a close range it's very devastating. You hardly have to aim at all, but when you get at a distance, it's not too powerful, and it's easier to miss you. Even if it does hit you, it might not do anything. A little something to think about, you know, a little nuance of the rune, and its power. The bullet, some people believe it's a tier thing, which because of aim. It's also the yew tree, which is the tree of the archer, because the yew tree flexibility was used to make bows. And Viking archers were pretty good at their stuff, but they weren't Hagal. In ancient times, they would use sling stones, and these were round stones usually found in riverbed, and they would be put in a leather thong called a sling, spun and fired. And they would put together large units of these men. The Greeks and the Romans loved it, because what they did was they made an opposing unit slow down, lift up his shield, and slow down. They weren't necessarily a killing weapon as much as they were a weapon to harass and slow down and disrupt an enemy. The pelting action. And the Greeks even had a warrior, no relation, but there is a similarity, called the peltast. And the peltast would do is they would run out, throw 3 or 4 little javelins and run back, with the same idea though, to make the enemy duck, to disrupt them a little. Come up about 1500 years and you have the Napoleonic Wars, and what do? They're using voltigeurs, they're using Jaeger, they're using light infantry, who go out ahead of the unit, and in effect a pelting action, just shaking them up so that they're slightly disrupted for the big unit. The disruptive factor of Hagal applied against an enemy. You don't want it happening to yourself. It may not totally shake you, but it could cause enough concern that, if followed by a more focused attack, could scatter you. A little hidden lesson there, isn't there? And who thought Napoleon would have anything to do with the runes? I'm sure Napoleon didn't even know what the runes were as we know them, but I'm sure he did understand some of the principles that we know. He was a very successful general and a very interesting character, I guess. He was also considered quite a villain. Good guy, bad guy, history will tell. It's all a matter of opinion. The French think he's wonderful, the Germans not so much. Hagal, scatter shot pelting. Now submachine gun pelts, a machine gun, automatic weapons, a Gatling gun pelts, because it makes the enemy take cover under all that massed fire. You see again that random bullets flying around? Maybe they're not so random, but everyone takes cover. It stops, again it disrupts. The submachine gun, which is a light automatic weapon, it only fires pistol-size ammo. Doesn't have much range, and 50 yards out it loses a lot of hitting power, but it can put up a hailstorm at close range, disrupt the enemy, and it's deadly, but at a little further range at least it can make them scatter. They give them to tank crews because as the tankers are trying to escape a damaged tank, those bursts of automatic fire might make the enemy duck enough, just long enough for the tank crew to get away. The Thompson submachine gun was popular with the gangsters in Chicago, and they used to do that spray and pray sort of thing. Spray and pray means just spray and pray you hit something. Here's an interesting bit of history. You might remember Clyde Barrow from the Bonnie and Clyde gang. Clyde Barrow preferred the Browning automatic rifle, which was an automatic weapon firing a rifle bullet, much more powerful but much heavier, not as light to carry around. Still a lot more hitting power, because what he liked about it over the submachine gun was that it would crack the engine block of a pursuing car. It could also go right through the car, could go right through walls. It was a much heavier weapon. To this day in the United States, armories who have weapons, National Guard armories and reserve armories, take out the bolts and put them into a safe which is then kept in the care of the nearest large police department, the police station. The bolts are kept separated from the weapons because you can't fire the weapon without a bolt. And the reason they do that is because Clyde Barrow used to like to break into armories and steal BARs, Browning automatic rifles. A little bit of history for you. Hagal is a scattering, a separating. Its randomness can be good as an advertising, where you just pepper the area and hope you get a few people. It can be dangerous, as we've already discussed. Think of when you used to set up a handful of army men and then take a handful of stones and throw it at them, knowing that the randomness might knock down a few of them. Some would be missed, but the randomness you'd get some. Therein is Hagal. Something to consider. And if you're up for buying a bag of army men and getting a handful of pebbles to experience, so be it. I'm going to end on that note, and I'm going to wish you luck with your studies. Have a good one. This is Uncle Thor from the Troll Eyes Press, and I got to sign out.